Good morning, Sinaya.
Good morning, Mr. Levy. How are you?
Very good.
Boker Tov.
Boker Tov. You can speak a little bit Hebrew?
Not enough to say yes.
Okay.
Laila Tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Please tell me your story.
Well, I was born Catholic. I was born in Alpine, Texas, and I was raised in Ruidoso, New Mexico. My family went to New Mexico when I was very little. We had a lot of family members that lived in other cities of New Mexico. And I was born and raised Catholic. However, my whole life I questioned that. And I remember when I was little, really little, 4, maybe 5 years old, I broke a statue of Jesus. And of course I got in trouble. And I asked my grandmother, did I break God? Because that really puzzled me. If God could be broken, why did I need God? I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why I would get in trouble for breaking something that could be broken, if it was so special. My whole life I've had those types of questions. And when I became 18 years old, my whole life I had been really questioning God and saying, God, if you're real, you know what, I need to know that, because none of this stuff makes sense to me. Why would God have sex with a woman and have a virgin birth? And why would God die on a cross and say, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? Why would God be the Son and die and ask God, why would he forsake him? That didn't make sense to me. None of that made sense. So at 18 years old, I left the church, and I think the church was happy to see me go. I think it was very much a mutual agreement. I'd had a divine encounter when I was 18, and when I shared it with my boyfriend at the time, who I later married, of course he was a born-again Christian, whatever that means, and suddenly he was telling me what kind of experience I had. I was 18 years old. I was from the mountains of New Mexico. I'd never read the Bible. I'd only struggled with God my whole life. And Christianity left me feeling the same way, with a lot of things didn't make sense. And I was drawn to Judaism. I don't know why, don't know how, but I remember always feeling a connection to Jews when I met them. And when I was 36, I went back home to New Mexico through a divorce, and I divorced Christianity as well.
Oh, the same time.
So I've had this magic number of 18 in my life. And anyway, I couldn't go to churches anymore. None of it made sense. And so I put God on the spot. And I said, you know, if you can, in my ignorance, you know, if you can talk to Moses, why can't you talk to me? I don't get this. I don't understand this. But I've always had a very strong dream world, and I began to pursue the things that I wanted to really for the first time. I was no longer a child in my parents' home, being told what to believe and what to do and how to do it, and then I wasn't married to someone telling me what I should do, how I should do it, when I should do it. So I began to find as many Jewish texts as possible wherever I could find them. I began pursuing my artwork full time and took a lot of great risks. In 1999, some friends invited me to a Messianic conference, and to tell you the truth, I was so ignorant I didn't know what that was. So I just told it was a Jewish thing, and I went, and I was very surprised. It was in Glorieta, New Mexico, which is about a 4-hour drive from where I live in Ruidoso. I have to go 4 hours north. And I took my 13-year-old daughter, who's very angry with me for taking her away from the Valentine's party and her friends. And anyway, we got there on a Friday afternoon, and I saw all these Hispanic people the men were wearing kippot, the they were wearing talits. That Friday night they did the service in all Hebrew, and it was really lively, and music and dancing, and all the songs were in Hebrew, and the service was in Hebrew, and something for the first time started to feel right. And I had never heard Hebrew to my knowledge. And so by the end of the weekend, this woman had befriended me and kept asking me all these questions. Every time I turned around, there she was, the whole weekend. And I finally asked her, I said, why are you asking me all these questions about my family, where I'm from, you know, what my traditions are, etc.? And she said, well, because I think you might be from the Marranos.
Oh.
And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, did she just call me a pig? So I said, excuse me? And she says, I think you might be from the Marranos. I said, doesn't that mean pig? Did you just call me a pig? And she goes, no. And she's like, no, it's a historical term, the Marranos from Spain that got expelled. Well, all of a sudden, something clicked, because my family had always told me we're from Spain. My mother was so proud that her mother spoke Castilian Spanish. Well, growing up as a little girl, I was 5 when the doctors told my parents not, because my brother didn't speak. My brother, he and I communicated in our own language, and I communicated everything for him for his first 5 years.
He's deaf?
Nope. They took him to doctor after doctor after doctor. We spoke our own language. And I'm not sure what that language is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So the doctor said, don't speak to them Spanish, you're confusing them. They'll pick it up later. And it was real taboo in the 60s anyway for Hispanic children to be speaking Spanish in schools or at home. They didn't want you speaking. They wanted you to speak only English. This was in Southwest Texas and New Mexico. So anyway, this woman at this conference at the end of the weekend said, I'm going to give you a website, and the Vatican has released over 10,000 names from the archives of the Spanish Inquisition. You might find some information there. And I also met an Israeli gentleman who was selling Judaica there. So for the first time in my life, I had what I felt were real Jewish books. Not all this Messianic stuff that didn't make sense either. It made about as much sense as Christianity. Which didn't make any sense at all. Anyway, so I took home a whole bunch of Hebrew books, and I got First Steps in Hebrew Prayer. I got Living Israeli Hebrew, and still struggling with Hebrew. But anyway, I started teaching myself the Aleph Bet, and I went home and I told my parents, I think we're Jews. So I started asking my parents, you know, what are our last names? And I went to this website, which is www.sephardim.com. Harry Stein owns this website, and it has over 10,000 names that the Vatican released from the archives, and all of my last names were there.
Oh, wow.
And then that was in 1999. I was already practicing Judaism on my own from 1996. And so it was like adding, you know, to my collection of things and knowledge and understanding of Judaism. So I started doing a little bit more, and by that time I started closing my store on Shabbat. And I live in a tourist town. It's the busiest 3 days are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And everybody thought I was nuts to close on the busiest day of the week. And I started closing on the holidays, Jewish holidays, or
yes,
biblical holidays. And I was open on Christmas, and I was open on on Easter. People were insulted because I come from a Catholic and Christian community, mostly Catholic, a lot of missions in our area. Anyway, in 2002, I was dating a man who was dying of cancer, and he and I both were the only ones in our family that were practicing Judaism, and we were the only, we felt alone.